Hello, and welcome. Tonight, we will take a gentle journey through the human body's biomechanics. As you settle into comfort, allow my voice to guide you calmly. Biomechanics is the study of how our body's structures move and bear forces, a quiet exploration of bones, muscles, heart, and more, all working together. In this soft, meditative narrative, we'll wander through the anatomy of movement, the push and pull of forces, the properties of our tissues, the flow of blood, and the subtle ways our bodies adapt. We'll do so slowly and peacefully, like a bedtime story of your own body. No need to remember anything, just listen and relax. Let each description wash over you like a gentle tide. We begin at the very basics, painting a mental picture of the body and its motions in stillness. Take a slow breath, feel the weight of gravity easing you into your bed, and imagine the framework of your body settling into perfect equilibrium. Our exploration starts with the language of anatomy, the directions and motions that describe how we move. Everything is calm. Everything is safe. Let's begin. Anatomical orientation and movements. Picture yourself standing comfortably, or perhaps simply envision the form of a human body. We often speak of the body in planes and directions. Envision 3 imaginary planes slicing gently through your body. One plane is frontal, dividing front and back, sometimes called the coronal plane, like a crown slicing down from the top of your head, separating your belly side from your back side. Another plane is sagittal, dividing left and right, running through the center, splitting your body into 2 mirrored halves. The third plane is transverse, a horizontal slice that divides upper and lower, as if a sheet glides through your waist, separating above from below. These planes are just concepts, but they help us describe movement. Now, consider directions on the body. Toward the front is anterior, toward the back is posterior. Toward the head is superior, and toward the feet is inferior. If something is closer to the midline of your body, it's medial. If it's farther out to the side, it's lateral. When we speak of your limbs, proximal means closer to the trunk, your shoulder is proximal compared to your hand, and distal means further from the trunk, your fingers are distal, farther out. These words are like a quiet map, giving us orientation. As you lie in bed, you might feel which parts of you are touching the mattress, perhaps your back, that's a posterior surface, and which are facing up, your front, the anterior side. With each breath, imagine these planes and directions gently aligning your awareness of your body. Everything is aligned and peaceful. Now, let's think about movements. Even though you are resting, you can imagine moving slowly and softly. When you decrease the angle at a joint, for instance, bending your arm at the elbow or curling your toes, that motion is called flexion. It's like a gentle folding inward. And when you increase the angle, straightening your arm back out or stretching your toes away, that is extension. Flexion, extension, one is a soft curl, the other a lengthening. If you move a limb away from the midline of your body, like raising your arm out to the side, that is abduction, as if the limb is being carried away. Bringing it back toward the body is adduction, a returning inward. Picture a slow, gentle drift of your arms outward, abduction, and then back to your sides, adduction, like a calm wave opening and closing. There are other, more specific motions too. Gently turn your palm upward. If you were to do so, this outward rotation of the forearm is supination. Think of holding a bowl of soup in your palm, and turning the palm downward is pronation. In your mind, feel the forearm rotate softly. At your ankle, if you were to rotate the sole of your foot inward, it's called inversion, and outward is eversion. These are subtle, ankle-relaxing motions. Perhaps you felt them when rolling your ankles gently. Your wrist can bend sideways too. Bending toward the thumb side is sometimes called radial deviation, and toward the pinky side ulnar deviation, but we need not worry about the names too much. Just know your joints can move in many gentle ways. Your head can turn side to side, a rotation, or nod forward and back, flexion, an extension of the neck, all in alignment with those planes we imagined. Turning occurs in a horizontal plane, nodding in a sagittal plane, tilting your head toward your shoulder in a frontal plane. Even your spine can curl and straighten in a soothing rhythm. Flexion, extension, abduction, adduction, rotation, these words float by like a litany of gentle motions. As you're breathing slowly, you might even feel tiny movements, the rise and fall of your chest, that's expansion and relaxation, the slight shifting as you settle into a comfortable position. Everything we do, even these small adjustments, can be described with the language of anatomy. Let's linger for a moment on these words: flexion, extension, abduction, adduction, supination, pronation. They are simply descriptions of motions your body can make, and in this moment, even if you remain still, it's comforting to know how naturally your body is capable of moving. Feel free to release any tension. Your body knows these motions and also knows how to be still. In this stillness, you are in anatomical neutral position, a restful pose where no particular joint is bent significantly. Your arms might be at your sides, slight abduction, or perhaps resting on your body. Your feet fall naturally outward, a bit of external rotation at the hips. It's as if your body is in a perfectly balanced state, aligned with gravity. Forces and moments in the body. Beneath every motion, even the tiniest, there are quiet forces at play. Let's gently explore the concept of force and balance in your body. A force is simply a push or a pull, a basic interaction that tends to cause movement, translation, of an object. Gravity, for example, is pulling you downward, the bed exerts an upward force supporting you. Even when you feel completely relaxed, these forces are present, balancing each other so you remain at rest. Forces have a direction and a magnitude, like an arrow gently pointing a certain way with a certain strength. You can imagine a force vector as a soft arrow symbol, perhaps one pointing down through you, gravity's pull, and another pointing up from the mattress, support. In fact, to fully describe a force in the three-dimensional space of our world, we specify its size and its direction in the x, y, and z axes, but don't let that detail trouble you. It just means forces act in specific directions, and we can break them down into components, like how hard it pushes north-south, east-west, up-down. Right now, the force of gravity acting on you, your weight, is perfectly counteracted by the force from the bed. These forces balance, and so you remain still. Now, consider moments, also known as torques. A moment is what you get when a force tries to cause rotation around a point. If a force is applied at some distance from a joint or pivot, it creates a turning effect. For instance, if you very slowly raise your arm out in front of you, the weight of your arm produces a moment about your shoulder, a tendency to rotate the shoulder downward. Your muscles produce an opposing moment to hold it up. Even in stillness, moments exist. The weight of your head creates a gentle moment trying to nod your head forward, which your neck muscles counteract if you're sitting, but if you're lying down, that moment is gone and your neck can relax completely. A moment too has magnitude and direction, which way it would cause rotation, given by a vector. We often use the right-hand rule in physics to determine a moment's direction, but you don't need to think about that now. Just imagine how opening a door involves a force at the handle, producing a turning effect on the hinges. In your body, bones and joints experience moments when forces act at distances. One fundamental principle bringing comfort to our discussion is static equilibrium, the condition where all forces and moments balance out so there is no acceleration. Right now, if you are lying still, your body is in a state of static equilibrium. The upward support force equals the downward weight force, sigma F equals 0, and there is no unbalanced twist, sigma M equals 0. It's a state of perfect balance and calm. In this equilibrium, nothing in your body is changing motion, it's peaceful and steady. If you shift slightly and then stop, you quickly return to a new equilibrium. This is the body's natural resting goal, to let forces resolve so you can be still. Within our bodies, bones and muscles form lever systems. Think of a simple seesaw, a plank that rotates about a pivot. In your body, a bone can act like the plank, a joint like the pivot, and a muscle applying force on one side can lift a weight on the other. Many of our joints function as third-class levers, which means the muscle attaches between the joint, pivot, and the weight or resistance. Take your forearm for example. When you hold something in your hand with your elbow bent, your biceps muscle attaches near the elbow, close to the pivot, and the weight is in your hand, far from the pivot. To hold your forearm level, the biceps must pull much harder than the weight's force, perhaps several times the weight, because of this leverage. The muscle generates a large force over a short distance to produce a movement of the hand over a larger distance. This is a mechanical disadvantage in force. The muscle must work harder, but a mechanical advantage in speed and range. Your hand moves quickly and through a wide arc. The body cleverly uses such lever arrangements so we can have agility and range of motion, even if it means our muscles exert high forces. Don't worry, our muscles and tendons are designed for this. For example, to lift a light object in your hand, your biceps might generate a force that feels effortless to you, but internally it could be several times the object's weight due to the short lever arm of the muscle. And when you stand up from a chair, the forces in your knees and hips are shared by multiple muscles and joints, each positioned in such a way that some work harder, some less, to coordinate that smooth motion. Consider a very gentle scenario. Imagine holding one arm out horizontally to the side, like extending a wing. Even if the arm is empty, the shoulder feels the effect of that arm's weight acting at a distance, creating a moment. One arm is roughly about 5% of your body weight, yet holding it straight out can put a load on the shoulder perhaps equivalent to a significant portion of your weight due to that leverage. If it feels too hard, you naturally bring your arm down, reducing the moment arm and thus the torque on your shoulder. Our bodies intuitively seek positions that minimize strain when at rest. That's why lying down is so restful. Limbs are supported, joints are bent in neutral angles, and large moments are eliminated. Another example of forces in equilibrium is when you stand on one foot. If you ever find yourself balancing on one leg, the entire weight of your body goes through your hip of that leg. The center of gravity of your body is a bit off to the side, so your torso tends to tip toward the unsupported side. But automatically, you engage your hip abductor muscles on the outer side of your hip to pull the other way and keep you upright. Those muscles generate a force that creates a counteracting moment to balance your torso. In doing so, the force passing through the hip joint can be surprisingly large, often 2 to 3 times your body weight or more, even though you're just standing still. But amazingly, you don't notice because everything is balanced. The joint is in static equilibrium, though under substantial internal force. Yet it feels natural and stable. What about dynamic situations? Even though our focus is soft and calm, it's interesting to note that when you walk or run, these internal forces and moments change continuously, and often the peak forces can be several times your body weight on joints like the knees or hips. Each step you take, there's a gentle rhythmic loading and unloading. But fear not, our joints are designed with cartilage pads and fluid to handle those loads smoothly. And right now, as you rest, those same joints are effectively unloaded and recuperating, bathed in nutrition from the circulation of synovial fluid. Remember that orthoload was mentioned in our course, a database of measurements of joint forces during activities. For instance, orthopedic researchers have measured the loads on a prosthetic hip implant inside patients during various activities. They found that even daily tasks generate significant forces. But let's keep it simple. Just know that normal activities cause our joints to carry big forces, yet our body handles them gracefully, distributing stress across muscles, bones, and connective tissues. In summary, your body is a silent balancing act of forces and moments. Even when you feel at complete ease, gravity and support are in perfect opposition. When you do move, like lifting an arm or turning your head, muscles generate forces and moments to initiate and control those movements. It all happens so naturally that we barely think in terms of physics, but the laws of physics are always there, ensuring that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, for every force a counterforce, maintaining harmony. As you lie here, you can appreciate this harmony. Your body is at equilibrium, all the forces are content and quiet. Material properties of tissues. Now let's delve into what our body is made of, not chemically, but mechanically. What gives our bones their strength, our tendons their resilience, our skin its flexibility? Each tissue in our body has certain material properties and behaviors, ways it responds to forces and deformation. This is about stress and strain, elasticity and viscosity, stiffness and softness. Don't worry, we will explain each gently. First, imagine you have a soft rubber band. When you pull it, you apply a force and it stretches. Stress in a material is defined as the force applied divided by the cross-sectional area over which it acts, essentially the intensity of the force within the material. If you stretch that rubber band, the stress is the tension spread through its tiny cross-section. Strain is the measure of deformation, how much the material changes length relative to its original length. If you pull the rubber band to be 10% longer than it was, we say the strain is 0.10 or 10%. In your body, if you hang from a pull-up bar, your bones actually compress by a minuscule strain under your weight, and if you stretch your muscles or tendons, they undergo strain too. Usually these strains are very small in daily life, well within what the tissues can handle. Most solid materials, including many in our body, have an elastic region. If you apply force and produce a strain, stretch or compress them, they will spring back to their original shape when the force is removed. Think of a spring or that rubber band, let go, and it returns. The relationship between stress and strain in this elastic region is often linear for small deformations, described by Hooke's law. The ratio of stress to strain in this linear portion is the elastic modulus, often called Young's modulus for tension compression. It's basically a measure of stiffness of the material. A high modulus means the material is stiff, it takes a lot of stress to produce a given small strain. A low modulus means it's very stretchy or compliant. For example, bone has a high elastic modulus, like glass or ceramic, quite stiff, whereas a tendon or cartilage has a lower modulus, more flexible, and something like a relaxed muscle or fat is even more compliant. If you gently press on your forearm, the initial resistance is from skin and fat, very soft, then muscle, soft but a bit firmer as it tightens, and deeper you'd feel bone, hard. Each layer's material properties differ. Now, imagine continuing to stretch a material beyond its comfort zone. Most materials have a yield point, a threshold beyond which some permanent deformation occurs. If you pull a plastic taffy slowly, at first it stretches elastically, but beyond a point it starts to permanently deform like a soft dough. In metals, this is called yielding, like when you bend a paperclip, a small bend springs back, but a bigger bend stays. Our bones, for instance, can bend slightly under heavy loads and come back, elastic, but if overloaded beyond the yield point, a permanent tiny deformity or crack could occur, plastic deformation. Our tendons and ligaments have some yield behavior too. They can stretch a bit and return, but if stretched too far, like in a sprain, they may not fully return to original length, having minor tears or elongation. This plastic region is something we want to avoid in our body's daily use. We generally operate in the safe elastic zone. Another property is structural vs material behavior. Before continuing with pure material concepts, it's worth noting that an object's response to force depends on both the material and the structure, shape, size. A thin twig and a thick branch might be made of the same wood, same material, but the branch is harder to bend due to its larger cross-section and shape. That's a structural property, often captured by quantities like the moment of inertia for bending. In our bodies, the long bones are hollow tubes of cortical bone with some spongy bone inside. This shape gives great strength for weight, like an architectural tube or an I-beam. A thick bone versus a thin bone of the same material will handle load differently. But now, returning to material properties intrinsic to tissues. Consider your bones and tendons and how they react to being loaded. Bones are quite stiff and strong, especially in compression, supporting weight. Anisotropy is an important term. It means directional dependence of properties. Bone is anisotropic, it's built to be strongest along its length, the direction it's most often loaded, like along your thigh bone when standing, and somewhat less strong across or in shear. Wood is a common analogy. Wood is stronger along the grain than against it. Our cortical bones have grain too, the alignment of collagen fibers and mineral in them. Tendons and ligaments are highly anisotropic. They are extremely strong when pulled lengthwise, that's what they're meant for, but very much weaker if pulled sideways or twisted. So, anisotropy means the material's response depends on direction. In our restful state, we aren't pushing our bones in odd directions, but it's good to know how nature has optimized them for certain orientations of load. Next, viscoelasticity, a big word with a simple idea: materials that have both elastic, spring-like, and viscous, fluid-like, resistance to flow, characteristics. Our tissues often exhibit viscoelastic behavior. This means their response to loading depends on how quickly or how long the load is applied. If you load them rapidly, they may resist more stiffly. If you load them slowly, they may deform more. And if you hold a load for a long time, they may continue to deform gradually. Let's unpack a few key phenomena of viscoelastic materials, all of which happen quietly in your body: creep, relaxation, and hysteresis. Creep is the tendency of a material to deform slowly over time under a constant load. Imagine hanging a weight from a rubber band and just leaving it. Initially the rubber band stretches to a certain length, immediate elastic stretch, but if you watch over minutes or hours, you'll see it slowly lengthen a bit more. That's creep. In your body, if you spend all day standing, the cartilage in your spine's intervertebral discs experiences a constant compressive load, and it creeps. The discs slowly lose height over the day as fluid is pressed out. That's why people can be slightly shorter in the evening than in the morning. But don't worry, when you lie down to rest, like now, the pressure is off and the discs gradually reabsorb fluid, and you regain that height overnight. Your body's viscoelastic tissues recover. Relaxation is the counterpart. If you stretch a material to a fixed length and hold it, the force required to hold that length will gradually decrease over time. Imagine pulling a muscle or tendon to a certain static stretch. At first you feel a strong tension, but as you hold the stretch gently, after a while the tension eases a bit even though you maintain the same stretch. That's stress relaxation. The material is slowly readjusting internally, losing stress under constant strain. In a medical context, when someone is put on a stretch, say, a patient in traction, the force needed reduces over time as the tissues relax. And then there's hysteresis. This is about energy loss. If you cyclically load and unload a viscoelastic material, the path it takes in loading vs unloading is different. Some energy is lost as heat in each cycle. Practically, this means when you bounce slightly on your Achilles tendon, like a gentle spring, it won't return 100% of the energy. Some is absorbed. You can feel this in a mattress or memory foam pillow. Push down and let up, it doesn't spring back all the way immediately. It dissipates energy, which often feels like a damping or soothing quality. In our joints, hysteresis means not all the impact energy of footsteps returns. Some is absorbed by cartilage and tendons, protecting us from shocks. Our body's tissues, bone, cartilage, tendons, muscles, all have some viscoelastic properties. Bone is surprisingly somewhat viscoelastic. It's stiffer, resists deformation more, at high loading rates. This is a protective mechanism. Under a sudden impact, bone can handle a bit more energy, though of course too much and it will fracture. Tendons and ligaments are quite viscoelastic. If you suddenly jerk a tendon, it resists strongly, possibly leading to injury, but if you apply the same displacement slowly, it will stretch more. That's why stretching exercises are done slowly and held, to allow tissues to adapt without injury and to take advantage of relaxation. Cartilage in joints also shows creep. Under constant load it deforms as fluid exudes, and when load is removed it slowly reshapes as fluid flows back. This is how nutrients move in cartilage. Since it doesn't have blood vessels, the loading and unloading, like walking, then resting, causes fluid to flow in and out, bringing nutrients and carrying away waste. So moderate movement actually nourishes your cartilage. Even muscles have viscoelastic components. Muscles have connective tissue sheaths and elements, and the behavior of active fibers can be rate dependent too. If you try to stretch a muscle quickly, you might feel more resistance and a stretch reflex contraction than if you stretch it slowly and gently. Take a moment to appreciate this. Your body is not like a brittle statue, it's more like a living, slightly springy, slightly fluid-filled cushion in many ways. This viscoelastic nature is why you feel stiff in the morning, after your tissues have cooled and fluid redistributed. Initial movement is a bit resisted, but then loosen up as you move. Motion warms tissues and gets fluid moving. It's why joint impact is softened, your tendons and cartilage absorb shock. And it's why prolonged positions can lead to slight changes, like that temporary height loss in the day, or why after sitting a long time you feel a bit tight. Some tissues have crept or relaxed, and need a moment to rebound. Thankfully, these processes happen gradually and naturally. To summarize gently, the materials of your body respond to forces in ways that are both spring-like and fluid-like. They stretch and return, but also ease into stretch over time and dissipate energy. This protects you and allows you to adapt. Engineers designing implants or supports for the body take these properties into account. For example, an artificial knee must be tough yet somewhat flexible, and often materials like polymers are used to mimic cartilage's viscoelastic shock absorption. But right now, in our quiet context, just know that your bones provide a strong framework with a bit of give, your cartilage and discs cushion you, and your tendons smoothly transmit muscle pulls to bone with some elasticity. Everything has the right mix of stiffness and flexibility, tuned by nature. As you rest, your viscoelastic tissues are slowly restoring themselves, any creep from the day is recovering, any strains are relaxing. Given enough time in this gentle state, they return toward their original states. Your body is resetting, like a spring uncoiling and a sponge soaking back up fluid. Tissues and the extracellular matrix. Let's broaden our view and think about what the body is made of in terms of tissues. Our bodies consist of billions of cells, but these cells are organized into four fundamental tissue types. Each type has its own role and character, and within each type, the cells sit in a kind of environment we call the extracellular matrix. Don't worry about the term, we will explain it gently. It's basically the material between cells that holds tissues together and gives them structural properties. The four basic tissue types are epithelial tissue, nervous tissue, muscle tissue, and connective tissue. Each has a unique story. Epithelial tissue forms the coverings and linings of our body. Think of your skin's outer layer, or the lining of your stomach and lungs. Epithelial cells are like tiles closely joined, forming protective sheets. These tissues often act as barriers and interfaces with the outside or with internal chambers. They can absorb nutrients, like in your intestines, secrete fluids, like sweat or mucus, or protect against pathogens. An epithelium has almost no blood vessels within it, it's usually nourished by underlying connective tissue, and it regenerates quickly if damaged. As you breathe, the epithelial lining in your airway warms and moistens the air. As you relax, the epithelium of your stomach might be slowly secreting digestive juices to process your dinner. All that happens quietly, with epithelial cells doing their jobs. Nervous tissue is the communication network. It consists of neurons, nerve cells, and supporting glial cells. Neurons transmit electrical signals, carrying information. Your brain, spinal cord, and nerves are all made of nervous tissue. This tissue is what allows you to sense, think, and react, from feeling the cool air on your skin to the peaceful thoughts in your mind right now. Even as you drift toward sleep, some neurons are active, producing the calming neurotransmitters that ease you into rest. Nervous tissue is delicate, it doesn't like compression or lack of oxygen, which is why it's protected by bone, the skull and vertebrae, and by constant blood flow. Right now, your nervous system is dialing down alertness, a cascade of signals telling your muscles to relax and your heart rate to slow. It's beautiful how it all connects. Muscle tissue we discussed in part already, but as a tissue type, it's specialized for contraction. There are actually three kinds of muscle tissue. Skeletal muscle moves your bones. It's the one under voluntary control, like the muscles in your arms and legs, which you can relax or tense at will. Cardiac muscle is the muscle of your heart, beating continuously without conscious thought. It's involuntary and highly endurance-oriented, with its own rhythm. Smooth muscle lines your internal organs and blood vessels. It contracts slowly and involuntarily, for example, to move food along your intestines or to adjust the diameter of blood vessels. All muscle tissues create force by the mechanism of actin and myosin filament sliding, which we'll revisit, but their control and speed differ. Muscle tissue in general has many blood vessels because it needs energy and oxygen for contraction. As you lie there, your skeletal muscles are mostly idle, except perhaps for small postural ones. Your heart muscle keeps working in a steady, calm beat. And smooth muscles in places like your digestive tract also work quietly, maybe gently churning or moving substances, all without disturbing your rest. Connective tissue is perhaps the most varied category. It basically includes everything that supports, connects, or separates other tissues. Bone, cartilage, tendons, ligaments, fat, blood, and even the fibrous tissue under your skin, these are all connective tissues. Yes, even blood is often classified as a connective tissue, as it originates from the same progenitor and connects the body by circulation. What they have in common is that they typically have relatively fewer cells scattered within an abundant extracellular matrix, ECM. For example, in bone, the cells, osteocytes, etc., are sparse, embedded in a hard matrix of mineral and collagen. In tendons, cells, fibroblasts, are thin and spaced out, nestled among dense collagen fibers. In blood, cells float in a liquid matrix, plasma. Connective tissues often provide structural integrity and support. They can range from rigid, bone, to pliable, adipose tissue or fat, which cushions, to fluid, blood. The cell density of connective tissue is usually low compared to epithelial or muscle tissue. If you looked at a slide of liver, which is full of epithelial cells, versus a slide of tendon, you'd see the liver tissue is packed with cells, whereas the tendon is mostly collagen fibers with nuclei sprinkled here and there. Connective tissue is like the infrastructure, the beams, cables, and fluids that tie everything together and fill in the spaces. Now, let's gently focus on that extracellular matrix, ECM, since it's a key concept in connective tissues and beyond. ECM is the non-living material that cells secrete around themselves. It's what gives connective tissues their bulk and mechanical properties. Imagine a scaffold or a mesh that fills the space between cells, that's ECM. It consists of a mixture of proteins, fibers, and ground substance. The main fibrous protein is collagen, which you can think of as the steel cables of the body. Collagen fibers are incredibly strong in tension, they give tendons and ligaments their high tensile strength and give skin its firmness. There are different types of collagen, but collectively it's the most abundant protein in your body. If you ever slow-cooked meat into gelatin, that gelatin is essentially collagen that has been broken down. It's usually stiff, but when heated it can soften. Collagen in your body, however, is usually arranged in fibrils and fibers, providing structure. Another important protein is elastin. As the name suggests, elastin fibers provide elasticity. They act like rubber bands in your ECM. Not all tissues have a lot of elastin, but those that need to stretch and recoil do. For example, the walls of large arteries, like the aorta, have elastin so they can stretch with each heartbeat and then spring back, smoothing the blood flow. Your skin also has elastin, giving it the ability to return to shape after being pinched or pulled. As we age, our skin's collagen and elastin change, which is part of why skin becomes less firm and less elastic. But in youth and in health, elastin contributes to the suppleness of tissues. The ECM also contains a more amorphous component called ground substance, which is a hydrated gel composed of sugars and protein complexes, notably proteolycans and glycosaminoglycans, GAGs. These long molecules are very good at holding water. They create a gel-like environment in spaces between fibers. In cartilage, for example, proteolycans trap water like a sponge, which helps the tissue resist compression. When you compress cartilage, the water trapped in the proteoglycan gel provides a cushioning effect. This is how cartilage can be both firm and shock-absorbing. The extracellular matrix of bone is unique because it is mineralized. Collagen fibers are impregnated with tiny calcium phosphate crystals, hydroxyapatite, making bone rigid and able to bear compressive loads. The ECM of tendons and ligaments is mostly collagen fibers aligned in one direction, making them ropes that can handle high tension. The ECM of skin is more randomly oriented collagen plus elastin, giving tensile strength in multiple directions and elasticity. Even blood vessels have ECM, collagen for strength, so they don't burst at high pressure, and elastin for elasticity to even out the pulse. One more example, basement membranes are thin sheets of specialized ECM that underlie epithelial layers. When you consider the alveoli in your lungs or the filtering units in your kidney, these basement membranes act as selective barriers and support structures made of fine meshworks of collagen and other proteins like laminin. They are so thin and delicate, yet strong, allowing, for instance, oxygen to diffuse through in the lung but still giving the tissue shape. In summary, the extracellular matrix is the silent framework that holds our tissues together. It's produced by the cells. For example, fibroblasts are cells in connective tissue that secrete collagen and elastin. The ECM not only provides mechanical support, it also influences cell behavior. Cells attach to it and sense its stiffness or composition, which can affect how they function, a topic we'll revisit in Mechanotransduction. But conceptually, when you think of a tendon, imagine a handful of cells weaving a dense fabric of collagen and a bit of elastin in a very ordered way. When you think of cartilage, imagine cells called chondrocytes suspended in a firm gel of collagen fibers and proteolycans. When you think of bone, imagine cells called osteoblasts building a collagen scaffold and then mineralizing it, with some cells, osteocytes, entombed inside to maintain it. Each tissue has a signature ECM. As you lie there, consider that your skin, an epithelium, is resting on a cushion of connective tissue beneath, the dermis, rich in collagen and elastin, giving it strength and elasticity. Your bones are encased in a tough fibrous membrane, periosteum, that blends with tendons. All of that is connective tissue continuity. And deep inside bones, the marrow is a connective tissue too, with a different ECM environment, a softer one where blood cells form. Everything connects. This connective network supports your shape even when you're completely relaxed. The interplay of cells and ECM is what makes tissues and organs functional. For instance, your ligaments, connecting bone to bone, have collagen fibers aligned in the direction of pull, so they are strong ropes preventing joints from moving in undesirable ways. If a ligament is torn, the ECM is disrupted, and the stability is lost. But even then, your body tries to repair it. Cells will produce new collagen to mend the gap, though the new tissue might be less perfectly organized, scar tissue. In our serene exploration, just imagine the body as composed of these four tissue types cooperating: epithelia forming protective layers and linings, connective tissues forming the scaffold and glue, muscle tissues generating gentle forces, and nervous tissue quietly regulating and connecting everything. And underlying much of this is the extracellular matrix, that gentle sea in which cells reside and through which forces and signals can be transmitted. It's quite poetic. Your body is a community of cells in an extracellular world they themselves create. Take comfort in knowing that even as you rest, your tissues are active in maintenance. Fibroblasts are renewing collagen, osteoblasts are strengthening bone, maybe not massively in one night, but little by little. Your body continually renews and adapts its matrix, even now in sleep. The skeletal system, bones and joints. Now let's focus on the skeletal system, the bones and associated tissues that give your body structure. Your skeleton is like the silent architecture of your form, the framework upon which everything else hangs. Yet, unlike a steel building frame, your skeleton is alive and ever-changing. As we talk about bones, imagine them not as dry, hard sticks, but as living organs with their own cells, blood vessels, and nerves, constantly remodeling themselves to stay strong. There are 206 bones in the adult human body, give or take a few small variations. When you were born, you actually had more, around 300, but many fused together as you grew, for example, the skull bones and the sacrum. It's fascinating to think that the number of bones can change over a lifetime, highlighting that bones are not static things but part of a dynamic system. Long ago, an anatomist named Vesalius painstakingly counted bones and originally got the number wrong due to counting some fused segments separately. Eventually the understanding settled to the count we know today. But beyond numbers, what matters is function. Bones support the body, protect vital organs, enable movement by providing levers for muscles, and even produce blood cells in the marrow and store minerals like calcium. They are amazingly multifunctional. Let's think of a specific bone, say, the femur, thigh bone. It's the longest bone in the body. The femur is strong enough to support the weight of the body many times over. Its upper end, the femoral head, fits into the hip socket, forming a ball and socket joint. Its lower end forms part of the knee joint. The shaft of the femur is mostly cortical bone, also called compact bone, a dense, hard tissue that gives the bone much of its strength. Inside towards the ends, and in some bones more extensively, there is cancellous bone, also known as trabecular or spongy bone. This spongy bone is a lattice of thin bony struts, trabeculae, with spaces between filled with marrow. The arrangement of trabeculae is not random, it aligns along lines of stress, almost like an internal scaffolding that efficiently supports loads with minimal weight. Spongy bone is a bit more flexible and helps absorb impact, while cortical bone provides rigidity. If you could see a cross-section of a long bone, you'd see a hard outer shell, cortical, and a somewhat honeycombed interior at the ends, spongy. This design achieves a wonderful balance, high strength to weight ratio. A solid steel rod bone would be too heavy, a completely hollow bone would be light but not as strong. Our bones are hollow in the middle, they have a marrow cavity in long bones, which reduces weight, but they have that cavity surrounded by a tube of cortical bone. This maximizes resistance to bending and torsion for a given amount of material. Engineers recognize this as a high second moment of area configuration. Nature arrived at this design long before human engineers thought of hollow beams. The moment of inertia of a cross-section, which indicates bending stiffness, is higher when material is distributed away from the center. So having bone material in a tube shape away from center makes it much stiffer in bending than if the same material were all bunched in the middle. Each bone in your skeleton has a shape tailored to its function. Flat bones like the skull protect the brain, curved ribs form a cage to safeguard the heart and lungs and expand with breathing. Small irregular bones of the spine, vertebrae, stack to form a flexible column. The pelvis is a sturdy basin to support abdominal organs and transfer weight to the legs. Your hand has many small bones to allow fine motions, whereas your leg has a few large bones for weight bearing. Yet, all these bones share common material features. They are composed of that composite of collagen fibers and mineral crystals, making bone a bicomposite material, collagen, like a soft framework giving toughness, and mineral, giving hardness and stiffness. This is akin to reinforced concrete, steel rebar plus hard concrete, or fiberglass, flexible fibers in a rigid resin, two components working together to yield properties better than either alone. Collagen alone would make bone too floppy, mineral alone, like pure crystal, would make it brittle. Together, they make bone strong and a bit tough, meaning it can absorb energy without shattering. Bones are also viscoelastic and anisotropic as mentioned. They are toughest under compression, which is often how they are loaded in legs and spine, and a bit less strong in tension, and even less in shear, sideways sliding forces. Under slow heavy loads, bone can deform slightly. We are talking very small deformations, maybe on the order of a fraction of a percent strain. Under a sudden impact, bone responds more stiffly, which can be good, resisting the impact, but if the force is too high, it fails in a more brittle manner, snaps. But bone also has a remarkable ability, it can repair and adapt. We'll talk more about adaptation soon, but consider that even minor everyday microdamage in bone, tiny cracks or fatigues from repetitive use, is routinely repaired by the bone's living cells. Now consider the joints where bones meet. Joints allow movement and also transmit forces between bones. The most common type is synovial joints. These are the freely movable joints like the shoulder, elbow, wrist, hip, knee, ankle, etc. In a synovial joint, the bone ends are covered with articular cartilage, a smooth shiny cartilage that is about a few millimeters thick. Cartilage is marvelous for joint function, it has a very low friction coefficient, bones can glide over each other smoothly, and it distributes loads over a wider area, so the stress on underlying bone is less. Cartilage achieves this by being a firm yet compressible material. It's mostly water-trapped in a matrix of collagen and proteolycans. When you load it, some fluid is squeezed out towards the edges or into the joint space. When you unload, it soaks fluid back up. This fluid exudation and imbibition means cartilage is viscoelastic too. If you stand for a long time, your cartilage might thin slightly, creep, but as you move, fluid is stirred around. Cartilage has no blood supply of its own, so it gets nourishment from the fluid and from the underlying bone's blood vessels. Therefore, movement is important for joint health. It's like pumping nutrients in and out. Right now, as you lie still, your cartilage isn't being actively nourished by movement, but it is likely swollen to its full height since you've been unloading it, and that soaking of fluid is also a part of its nutrition cycle. To keep joint motion smooth, we have synovial fluid inside the joint capsule, a slippery fluid that lubricates the cartilage surfaces. Think of oil in an engine. Synovial fluid is our natural oil, though it's more like a clear, viscous egg white-like fluid. It both lubricates and nourishes the cartilage. When you move a joint, even quietly, the fluid spreads and ensures low friction. Some joints have special additional structures. For example, the knee joint has menisci, which are C-shaped wedges of fibrocartilage that sit between the femur, thigh bone, and tibia, shin bone. The menisci help to deepen the contact area, improving fit and further distributing pressure. They act like little cushions or shock absorbers, especially for the knee which bears a lot of weight. Similarly, the temporomandibular joint, jaw, has a small disc, and the shoulder and hip have labrums, rings of cartilage, to deepen the socket. The intervertebral discs between your vertebrae are another kind of fibrocartilaginous structure. They allow your spine to be flexible yet absorb compressive loads. Each disc has a gel-like center, nucleus pulposus, and a fibrous outer ring, annulus fibrosus. When you stand or sit, the discs compress slightly. When you lie down, they re-expand as we noted. These discs are essential for cushioning and also for allowing bending and twisting of the spine. Let's talk about the supportive tissues, ligaments and tendons. These are both dense connective tissues composed largely of collagen fibers. Ligaments connect bone to bone, stabilizing joints. They usually run across joints in various orientations to limit certain motions. For instance, the knee has ligaments that prevent it from sliding too far forward, backward, or bending sideways. Ligaments are slightly elastic. They can stretch a tiny bit, but mostly they are tough bands preventing excessive movement. If you move within normal range, ligaments stay relatively slack. Near end of range, they tighten up to warn you and to prevent dislocation. If you exceed that, they can sprain, fiber damage, or tear. But at rest, your ligaments aren't under much tension. They are just there, ready to check motion if needed. Tendons, on the other hand, connect muscle to bone. When a muscle contracts, the tendon transmits that force to the bone to move the joint. Tendons need to be very strong to handle muscle forces and a bit elastic to smooth out the force and store some energy. The Achilles tendon at the back of your ankle is a good example. It's the strongest tendon, handling forces when you walk or run, and it can store elastic energy, like a spring, to make your steps more efficient. When you run, your Achilles tendon stretches slightly as you land, storing energy, and then releases it to help push off. This reduces the work muscles have to do. But even in calm walking, tendons contribute to a graceful, economical motion. At this moment, many of your tendons and ligaments are slack and resting. For example, the ligaments of your spine are at ease when you're lying in a neutral position. Your Achilles tendons have no load if your feet aren't bearing weight. They're just gently attached, nothing pulling hard. This rest allows fluid exchange and recovery in these tissues too. Tendons and ligaments have limited blood supply, so they recover slowly, but they do when given time and movement. Bone also interacts with muscles via attachments. Where tendons attach to bone, the collagen fibers actually blend into the bone tissue, gradually transitioning from flexible tendon to stiff bone. This gradient avoids a sharp cutoff that could cause failure. Nature designs these attachment sites, entheses, with a mix of fibrous tissue and mineralized tissue so that the change in stiffness is gradual. It's like how a twig attaches to a trunk, not an abrupt material change, but a gradual one. All these details show how well integrated our skeletal system is. Now, bones are not just inert beams, they are alive. Inside many bones is bone marrow, a soft tissue that produces blood cells. This function is not directly mechanical, but it is vital for life. The marrow is often cushioned within the spongy bone. So your heavy, strong bones also harbor the cradle of new blood cells. Let's envision an example of skeletal resilience, exercise and bone. When you do weight-bearing exercises, your bones sense the higher loads and respond by building more bone or reorganizing themselves to become stronger. A tennis player might have thicker bones in the playing arm due to repeated loads, for example. Conversely, when astronauts go to microgravity, no weight on bones, or someone is on extended bed rest, bones lose density because they aren't being mechanically stimulated. But in normal day-to-day life, even walking and moving are enough to keep bones healthy. So it's nice to know that being moderately active, even gentle walking, helps maintain your skeletal strength. And now, as you lie resting, you're allowing the bone remodeling processes to catch up on repairs and maintenance undisturbed by large forces. Your skeletal system also undergoes changes with age. Children's bones have growth plates, areas of cartilage where new bone is made as they grow taller. Those plates close in adolescence. In adulthood, bone mass might peak around the third decade of life, and in older age, bone density can decrease, especially in postmenopausal women, leading to osteoporosis if severe. But even then, bones respond to weight-bearing activities to slow that loss. It's a dynamic equilibrium between formation and resorption. We won't dive deeply into pathology, but trust that your body is always trying to maintain the best balance. Right now, if you're young, your bones might be actively building or at peak. If you're older, they might be gently remodeling to maintain what they can. In either case, a good night's sleep is part of allowing the hormones and nutrients to do their job in bone maintenance. Think for a moment of the quiet strength of your bones. They literally hold you up all day, often without complaint. Only when overstressed or if something's off do we even notice them. When you lie down, you might feel some points of contact: the back of your head, shoulder blades, elbows, sacrum, heels perhaps. Those are spots where bone is near the surface. Even then, there is usually padding, muscle or fat or skin, such that it's comfortable. If you adjust your position, different bones share the pressure. Your skeleton and soft tissues together ensure that no one point, ideally, gets too much load for too long. In this restful state, imagine your skeleton as glowing gently inside you, a tranquil scaffold. Each bone is whole and in place. Joints are aligned and lightly lubricated. Ligaments are slack. Tendons are unstrained. It's as if the entire system is sighing in relief, grateful for the respite. Gravity gently pulls, but your supporting surfaces and balanced posture neutralize any strain. We should also appreciate the connections, where bones meet muscles, via tendons, and bones meet bones, via joints and ligaments. It's all connected in a continuous chain. For instance, if you wiggle your toes, that movement originates with muscles in your calf, pulling on the Achilles tendon, moving foot bones, which in turn move toe bones. Even such a small action involves an orchestrated interplay of skeletal and muscular elements. In stillness, the orchestration is paused in a state of balance. So, the skeletal system provides the stable yet movable foundation for everything. Think of it as the stage on which the play of movement occurs. Tonight, that stage is quiet and dimly lit, awaiting the next performance tomorrow. But for now, we let it rest. Muscles, the movers and stabilizers. If bones are the structure, muscles are the motors that move that structure. They are also the brakes that slow movement and the struts that hold posture. There is something inherently soothing about muscles at rest. They go soft and pliable, no tension, like a calm ocean with no waves. Let's explore muscles gently, from their tiny molecular workings to their overall function, all in a calm manner. A muscle, such as the biceps in your arm or the large muscles in your thighs, is made up of many muscle fibers. Each fiber is essentially one long muscle cell. These fibers are bundled together in groups, fascicles, and a sheath of connective tissue wraps each level: endomysium around fibers, perimysium around bundles, epimysium around the whole muscle. The tendon of the muscle connects at each end, blending with those sheaths and anchoring into bone. So when the muscle fibers contract, they pull on the tendons which pull on the bones to create movement. Zooming in, inside each muscle fiber are finer threads called myofibrils. These are arranged longitudinally and are themselves composed of even smaller units called sarcomeres, the fundamental contractile units. A sarcomere is like a tiny segment of a muscle's striated pattern, and it's within these that contraction happens. Each sarcomere contains interdigitating actin, thin filaments, and myosin, thick filaments, arranged in a parallel, overlapping fashion. When a muscle contracts, these filaments slide past each other, increasing their overlap and thereby shortening the sarcomere, and thus the muscle. It's often called the sliding filament theory, not just a theory now, but an observed mechanism. Let's describe this process in a slow, visual way. Imagine a rowboat with oars. The myosin filaments are like rowers, and the actin filaments like water or perhaps ropes that the rowers pull on. Each myosin has many tiny arms with paddles. These are the myosin heads, often likened to little cross bridges because they reach out and attach to binding sites on the actin filaments. When a muscle fiber gets the signal to contract, an electrical impulse from a nerve, it triggers internal calcium release. The calcium ions bind to a protein called troponin on the actin filaments, which causes another protein, tropomyosin, to move and uncover the binding sites on actin. In a resting muscle, tropomyosin was covering those sites so myosin couldn't grab actin. But now, with calcium's effect, the sites are open. Consider it like unlocking the doors. Immediately, the energized myosin heads reach up, attach to actin, and pull. This is like a rower pulling the oar, or a person climbing a rope hand over hand. When the myosin heads tilt, the power stroke, they pull the actin filaments toward the center of the sarcomere, generating force and shortening it. After a pull, each myosin head needs to let go and recock to pull again. This is where ATP, the energy molecule, comes in. ATP binds to myosin, causing it to release actin, and then the ATP is split, hydrolyzed, which recocks the myosin head, storing energy in it like a spring. The myosin is now ready to bind again to actin further along and pull again. This cycle, attach, pull, release, reset, repeats many times a second, with billions of myosin heads in a muscle fiber working in coordinated chaos to produce a smooth contraction. The result, the muscle shortens and generates tension. It's astonishing that this happens in a fraction of a second from the moment a nerve impulse arrives. But it does. If a single impulse comes, a muscle fiber gives a quick, small contraction, a twitch. Normally, many impulses in rapid succession lead to a sustained contraction, tetanus, that we perceive as a steady force rather than twitches. But we don't need to worry about the details of twitches. Just picture your muscle fibers as tiny teams of rowers, all rowing together under the command of the nerve signal, causing the muscle to gently shorten. Now, at this moment as you relax, most of your skeletal muscles are in a state of low activity or complete rest. They are not receiving strong impulses from nerves. A few muscles, like those for breathing, your diaphragm and some intercostal muscles between ribs, continue rhythmic contraction even in sleep, but at a calm, slow pace. Other muscles maintain just a slight tone to keep you comfortable and in posture, but as you drift deeper, even those will let go. In deep sleep, muscle tone decreases significantly. You might notice a sensation of heaviness in your limbs as you relax. That's muscles letting go of tension. Let's consider some muscle types more specifically. Skeletal muscles are what we usually think of, the ones attached to bones. They vary in shape and size. Some are large and powerful, like quadriceps in the thighs. Some are small and precise, like those moving the fingers or eyes. But they all share the same basic mechanism of contraction. Each skeletal muscle fiber is typically activated by one motor neuron, coming from the spinal cord. One neuron branches to activate a group of muscle fibers. That group is called a motor unit. Small motor units, one neuron controlling few fibers, allow fine control, as in the eyes or fingers, while large motor units, one neuron controlling thousands of fibers, are for coarse, powerful movements, as in postural back muscles. When you lift something heavy, your brain recruits more motor units and fires them more frequently to produce more force. When you need a gentle touch, it uses fewer and fires them slower. This is happening unconsciously all the time. Smooth muscle is different. It's not striated in appearance, no obvious stripes under a microscope, and it contracts more slowly. Smooth muscle lines your digestive tract, blood vessels, bladder, and more. It usually responds to autonomic nervous signals or chemical signals. For example, the walls of your intestines have smooth muscle that rhythmically contracts to move food along, a process called peristalsis. That might be happening right now in a very calm, background manner if you've eaten recently, a gentle wave motion through your gut, entirely outside your conscious control, lulling perhaps in its own way. Smooth muscle also is in your iris, controlling pupil size, and in your blood vessels, where it can constrict or relax them to direct blood flow or regulate blood pressure. During relaxation, generally, the autonomic nervous system tilts towards a parasympathetic state, rest and digest, which can cause, for instance, more blood flow to the digestive system, vessels there dilate, and less to muscles, vessels there constrict a bit. All through smooth muscle actions. But these are very subtle adjustments that you won't overtly feel, they simply accompany the state of restfulness. Cardiac muscle is special, found only in the heart. It's striated like skeletal muscle but functions involuntarily and has unique properties like rhythmicity. The heart muscle cells can pass electrical signals to each other in a wave, causing a coordinated contraction of the heart chambers. The heart at rest might beat around 60 to 70 times a minute in many people, maybe slower in athletes. As you get drowsier, your vagus nerve, parasympathetic output, slows the heart a bit. Cardiac muscle tirelessly works from before birth till our last breath, and it even adapts to different demands, like pumping faster during exercise, slower during sleep. It has an intrinsic pacemaker but is modulated by nerves and hormones. In our meditative journey, maybe you can feel your own heart's gentle pumping. It might feel like a comforting, distant drum. Each beat is a brief contraction of cardiac muscle, a squeeze and a release, sending blood on its way. We'll explore the circulatory specifics next, but for now, just appreciate the heart muscle as one of our muscle types. Returning to skeletal muscles, they not only move us, they also help maintain posture. For instance, even lying down, some muscles might be softly active. If you lie on your back, the muscles in your lower back might engage slightly to maintain the natural curve of your spine. If you're on your side, your hip muscles might stabilize your pelvis. But ideally, you're well supported by pillows or a good mattress so that even those postural needs are minimal. When you slip into deep sleep, most skeletal muscles actually enter a very relaxed state, in REM sleep. Interestingly, the body even temporarily paralyzes skeletal muscles, except the ones for eyes and breathing, so you don't act out dreams. That's how deeply muscles can relax, to the point of near atonia, no tone, in sleep, which prevents injury. Muscles also produce heat when they contract. Ever notice getting warm when exercising? That's metabolism in muscles. Shivering when cold is muscle contractions to generate heat. But right now, you likely have a comfortable temperature and no need for shivering. Your muscles are quiet, not generating excess heat, just at basal metabolism levels. This helps your body cool slightly in preparation for sleep. Another point, muscles have elastic elements in them too. When you stretch a muscle, some resistance comes from the muscle fibers and some from the connective tissue within and around the muscle, fascia, tendons. That's why even a relaxed muscle has some resistance if you try to stretch it quickly, partly due to these passive elastic components. With slow stretching, muscles can lengthen more as we described, thanks to viscoelastic creep and reflex relaxation. We might also mention that muscles can act as brakes. When you set something down gently, your muscles perform an eccentric contraction. They lengthen while still exerting force to control the motion. For example, if you slowly lower your arm from a raised position, your deltoid muscle is lengthening under tension to gently bring the arm down rather than letting it drop. This eccentric mode can produce more force than concentric, shortening mode, and is often the cause of soreness after unusual exercise, since it stresses muscle fibers in a particular way. But fear not, in your restful state, no eccentric contractions are going on, maybe except in tiny stabilizers adjusting micro-posture. Nothing to cause soreness, quite the opposite. This is recovery time. Muscles adapt to how we use them as well. If you regularly lift heavy loads, your muscle fibers may grow thicker, hypertrophy, and you recruit them more efficiently. If muscles aren't used, they atrophy, shrink, over time. Even during a single night's sleep, interestingly, muscle fibers might replenish some fuel stores, like glycogen, and repair minor wear and tear. A lot of muscle recovery, such as protein synthesis, happens during sleep, especially deep sleep. Growth hormone, which aids tissue repair, is released in higher amounts during deep sleep. So literally, as you sleep, your muscles are healing from the day's work and maybe growing a little if stimulated by prior exercise. That's a comforting thought. You are improving your muscle health just by resting. Think about how many muscles you use today for walking, talking, eating, chewing is thanks to masseter muscles in the jaw, expressing emotions on your face, typing or writing, even just keeping your head up against gravity. They all deserve this downtime. From the powerful quadriceps that might have carried you upstairs, to the tiny muscles between your ribs that helped you breathe, to the eyelid muscles that blink to protect your eyes, now is their time to rest. Let's do a tiny muscle relaxation check, purely as a mental exercise. You don't have to physically do anything. Bring your awareness to your forehead and eyes, feel the muscles there, allow them to soften. Sometimes we hold tension in the brow or around eyes without knowing. Now your jaw, it might help to leave a bit of gap between your teeth so the jaw muscles fully let go. Your neck, let your head be heavy, neck muscles releasing into the pillow. Shoulders, drop them away from ears, they should feel heavy and loose. Arms and hands, let them sink, fingers naturally curling without any grip. Torso, take a slow breath, and as you exhale, imagine any tightness in chest or back muscles just melting. Hips and buttocks unclench, allow the bed to support the weight of your pelvis. Thighs, knees, loose and supported. Calves and feet, let your toes fall freely, perhaps outward. This progressive release ensures no muscle is unnecessarily contracting. Your body is truly at rest. The muscles now are like a calm lake, not a single ripple of contraction beyond what is needed for life's basics: heart beating, breathing. We've covered the main musculoskeletal components: bones, joints, and muscles. Together, they form the musculoskeletal system, which lets you interact with the world, to stand, move, hug loved ones, or even to stretch luxuriously when you wake. It's a beautifully coordinated system. And now that we've explored it, we can let it be fully relaxed. With your skeleton supported and your muscles released, your body can feel heavy and light at the same time, heavy in the bed, light in mind, as if floating. The circulatory system, blood flow, and the heart. Now we move into the gentle river within you, the circulatory system. While you rest, your heart and blood vessels continuously work in the background, quietly sustaining every part of your body. Let's dive into this internal flow in a calm and soothing way, following the path of blood as it nourishes and cleanses your tissues. The heart lies in the center of your chest, slightly to the left, cradled by your lungs. Imagine it about the size of your fist, a strong muscle that never tires of its rhythmic duty. With each beat, the heart generates a pressure wave that pushes blood through an extensive network of vessels. The heart is a two-sided pump. The right side receives blood returning from the body, depleted of oxygen and laden with carbon dioxide, and pumps it to the lungs. The left side receives the freshly oxygenated blood from the lungs and pumps it out to the entire body. Each side has two chambers, an atrium, upper chamber, and a ventricle, lower chamber. The atria act as collecting reservoirs and primers for the ventricles. The ventricles are the main pumps. In a calm state, the heart might beat around once every second or slower. Consider the phases of a heartbeat. Diastole is when the heart muscle relaxes and the chambers fill with blood, the ventricles filling from the atria. Systole is when the ventricles contract and eject blood out. It's a beautiful cycle: fill and pump, fill and pump. Normally, it's very smooth. You can liken it to the rhythm of ocean waves, the gathering of water, filling, and the surge forward, ejection. In fact, if you ever listen to someone's heart with a stethoscope, you hear two main sounds often described as lub-dub. The lub, first heart sound, comes when the atrioventricular valves close at the start of ventricular contraction. Those are the valves between atria and ventricles, tricuspid on the right, mitral on the left, which shut to prevent backflow, making a synchronized sound. The dub, second heart sound, is when the semilunar valves, the pulmonary and aortic valves at the exits of the ventricles, close after blood is ejected, preventing backflow from the arteries into the heart. In between these sounds, there is a quiet pause as the heart refills, diastole. When you're deeply relaxed, the diastolic phase lengthens slightly. The heart takes its time to fill before the next beat. It's unhurried, as if each beat says, there is no rush. Let's gently visualize one full heartbeat in slow motion. The heart has just finished contracting, now the ventricles relax and diastole begins. As they relax, the pressure inside them falls. The aortic and pulmonary valves softly close, that was the dub, and for a brief moment all valves are closed and the ventricles relax further, isovolumetric relaxation. Soon, the pressure in the ventricles drops below that in the atria, which have been filling with blood returning to the heart. The AV valves, tricuspid and mitral, open, and blood stored in the atria flows passively down into the ventricles. This is a quiet filling phase. About 70% of the blood volume fills just by this passive flow. Then, in the latter part of diastole, the atria themselves contract, a little lateral kick, pushing an extra bit of blood into the ventricles, especially important during exercise or in certain conditions, but at rest it's gentle. Now the ventricles are full. They are like cups brimming with blood, ready. Next, systole, the ventricles begin to contract, their muscular walls squeeze inward. The pressure inside them rises. The AV valves snap shut, lub, to prevent blood from going back into atria. As pressure quickly builds, once it exceeds the pressure in the arteries, aorta for left ventricle, pulmonary artery for right, the semilunar valves are pushed open and blood is expelled forcefully out of the heart. The blood surges into the arteries at about 70 milliliters from each ventricle in a typical resting adult heart per beat, called the stroke volume. Then the ventricles finish contracting and begin to relax, and the cycle repeats. It's a continuous loop of fill and pump, with valves ensuring one-way flow, maintaining an orderly progression. Imagine now that surge of blood leaving the left ventricle and entering the aorta, the largest artery. The aorta is as thick as perhaps a garden hose where it leaves the heart, but it quickly branches. Arteries are strong, muscular, and elastic vessels. When the heart pushes blood into them, they expand a bit, like a balloon expanding. This is their elastic property. Then during diastole, when the heart is resting, the arteries recoil, like a balloon shrinking back, which helps maintain pressure and push the blood forward even when the heart is not actively pumping. This is often called the Wynne-Kessel effect, where the large elastic arteries even out the pulsatile flow from the heart, turning it into a more steady flow in the capillaries. So in a sense, the arteries are buffering the pulsation. They take a stroke of blood, stretch to accommodate it, then squeeze it along. You can feel this as your pulse in places like your wrist or neck. Each pulse corresponds to a heartbeat's worth of blood stretching the artery and then moving along. At rest, that pulse is gentle and not too forceful. As the arteries branch and branch throughout the body, they become arterioles, the small vessels that lead into capillaries. Arterioles have muscular walls relative to their size and are often called the resistance vessels because by constricting or dilating, they control blood flow into various tissues. For example, after a meal, arterioles to the digestive tract dilate, open up, to allow more blood flow for digestion, while arterioles to skeletal muscles might constrict slightly since those muscles are at rest, thus diverting blood where it's needed. During exercise, the pattern reverses. Muscle arterioles open wide, digestive ones constrict. This is largely controlled by the autonomic nervous system and local chemical signals. In a calm resting state like now, blood is fairly well distributed everywhere, with maybe a slight emphasis on gut and brain, the organs active in rest and digest and thinking, daydreaming. Eventually, blood reaches the capillaries, the tiniest blood vessels, some so narrow that red blood cells must travel in single file. Capillary walls are just one cell thick, essentially the diameter of a single squamous endothelial cell. This extremely thin barrier allows for efficient exchange of gases, nutrients, and wastes. In the systemic circulation, out in the body tissues, oxygen and nutrients like glucose diffuse out of blood into the tissue, and carbon dioxide and wastes diffuse into the blood. In the lungs, pulmonary capillaries, it's the opposite. CO2 leaves the blood to be exhaled, and oxygen enters. The sheer number of capillaries is enormous. Every cell in your body is usually no more than a few cell widths away from a capillary. The network is rich. For instance, your muscles, your skin, your brain all have dense capillary beds. Some capillaries are so narrow they might be only 5 to 7 micrometers in diameter. A red blood cell is about 7 micrometers across, truly fine vessels. Despite their size, collectively capillaries have the largest cross-sectional area of any part of the circulation, because there are so many of them. This causes the blood flow in capillaries to be slow and smooth, which is exactly what's needed for exchange. The blood meanders through, giving time for oxygen to leave and so forth. Imagine a wide river delta, many small channels, which slows the flow compared to a single narrow river. That's what the capillary network is like. Within the capillaries, a delicate balance of pressures governs fluid exchange. Blood pressure tends to push water out of capillaries, especially at the arterial end of a capillary, while the osmotic pressure of plasma, due to proteins like albumin, tends to pull water back in, especially toward the venous end. This is known as Starling forces. Early in the capillary, some fluid filters out to bathe the tissue. Later in the capillary, much of it is reabsorbed. Not all the fluid returns. A small net amount is left in tissues, and that is picked up by the lymphatic system eventually and returned to blood. But generally, this system ensures that your tissues get nutrients and fluid without swelling up too much. It's a finely tuned equilibrium. If blood pressure in capillaries is too high or plasma protein is too low, more fluid may leak out than comes back in, leading to edema, swelling. But at rest, in a healthy state, your body's Starling equilibrium quietly maintains proper fluid balance. After passing through capillaries, the blood collects into venules, then into veins. The veins are the return vessels, bringing blood back to the heart. Veins have thinner walls than arteries and often have valves inside, especially in the limbs, to prevent backflow. Because by the time blood is in the veins, pressure is much lower, and often it's going uphill, from feet back to heart, for example. Those venous valves ensure that when muscles squeeze the veins, like the calf muscle when you walk, or any muscle pressing on veins, the blood is milked upward toward the heart and not allowed to drop back down. Right now, if you're lying horizontally, your veins don't have to fight gravity much, blood returns easily. If you were standing, those valves and muscle pumps would be crucial to prevent blood pooling in your legs. This is why sometimes standing very still for too long can cause people to faint. Blood pools in legs, less returns to heart, brain gets less blood. But lying down, everything is on an even plane, so venous return is as easy as it gets. Veins are also called capacitance vessels because they can stretch and hold a lot of blood. At rest, a large portion of your blood volume is in the venous system, maybe around 60 to 70%. If needed, like during exercise or if you need to raise blood pressure, veins can constrict, pushing more blood back to the heart to circulate. In restful conditions, veins are fairly relaxed and just serving as gentle conduits and reservoirs. The blood pressure in large veins is low, often just a few mmHg. In fact, to get blood from the veins of your body back to the heart, especially from the lower body, things like breathing also help. When you inhale, pressure in your chest drops, which draws blood into the thoracic veins, a kind of respiratory pump for venous return. When you exhale, valves ensure blood doesn't get pushed backwards. It's elegant how even breathing aids circulation. The blood itself is a living tissue composed of red blood cells, which carry oxygen bound to hemoglobin, white blood cells, immune cells guarding you even now, platelets, for clotting if needed, and plasma, the liquid with water, proteins, nutrients, hormones. As your heart beats and your vessels channel the blood, every cell in your body gets what it needs. Even in sleep, your brain needs oxygen and glucose which the blood provides, your skin and organs are being perfused. Perhaps the demands are lower at rest, but maintenance and repair work in the body still require nourishment and waste removal. Let's imagine a single red blood cell's journey, since it can be quite soothing to trace a path. Suppose we start in the right atrium of the heart. The red blood cell is in venous blood, having returned from the body carrying co. It flows through the tricuspid valve to the right ventricle, then gets pushed through the pulmonary valve into the pulmonary artery and into the capillaries of the lungs. There, in the lungs' air sacs, the red blood cell releases co, which you'll breathe out, and binds fresh O that you inhaled. Now oxygen-rich, it travels via the pulmonary veins to the left atrium, through the mitral valve into the left ventricle. A strong squeeze sends it out the aortic valve into the aorta. Say this particular cell goes towards the brain, it flows up the carotid artery, branches into smaller arteries, eventually reaching tiny cerebral capillaries. There it gives oxygen to a neuron and picks up co. The journey continues as it moves into venules, then veins, maybe the jugular vein coming down the neck, back towards the heart, joining the superior vena cava and back into the right atrium. This loop, heart to lungs to heart to body to heart, repeats endlessly. A complete circuit may be taking on the order of a minute at rest to go round trip, faster if your heart's beating quicker. Now consider maybe a cell that goes to your big toe, left ventricle to aorta, down the descending aorta, through iliac arteries into the femoral artery, down the leg, into smaller arteries of the foot, capillaries in the toe, maybe delivering oxygen to a skin cell there, then into veins working its way back up, valves helping at each step, to the inferior vena cava and to the right heart again. Whether brain or toe or any organ, the blood follows these channels to each corner of you. In doing so, it connects all your cells in a common circulation, truly your inner ocean. While you rest, your blood pressure is probably a bit lower than when you're active. Blood pressure is usually given as systolic, diastolic, for example 120/80 mmHg is a typical normal. During deep relaxation or sleep, it can dip lower, that's healthy. The highest pressure is in the arteries near the heart during systole, and pressure decreases as you move through the circulation. By the time blood returns via veins, pressure might be near zero or even slightly subatmospheric in the vena cava as it enters the heart. But because the system is closed and dynamic, flow continues unbroken. It's interesting to note that the sound of your heartbeat or your pulse can be calming to some. It's a rhythmic, almost musical thing when heard through a stethoscope or just felt. Some people fall asleep listening to a heartbeat sound because it reminds them perhaps of the womb or just gives a sense of reassurance. Your heart right now is beating steadily, quietly. If you place a hand on your chest or feel your pulse at the wrist or neck, you might notice it's unhurried and perhaps even slowing as you get sleepier. That's a sign that your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest side of autonomic system, is in control, releasing acetylcholine onto the heart's pacemaker cells and slowing them a bit. Meanwhile, blood vessels in your extremities might be dilating a little, hence some people get warm hands, feet as they relax, a sign of parasympathetic activity increasing blood flow to skin. All these are subtle but real physiological changes preparing you for restful sleep. Let's not forget some specific circulatory wonders. For example, the brain's blood flow is kept quite constant through auto-regulation. Brain arterioles adjust their diameter to maintain steady flow despite changes in blood pressure. During certain sleep stages, brain activity changes patterns, and blood flow shifts accordingly. Some areas quiet, others may be active if you dream. But overall, your brain's getting what it needs. Also, during sleep, the body does some housekeeping with fluid. For instance, there's research suggesting cerebrospinal fluid circulation in the brain increases during sleep to help wash out metabolites, like the brain cleansing itself. The circulatory system and a parallel system called the lymphatic system, or glymphatic in the brain, partake in that. So as you rest, imagine not only blood delivering nutrients, but also carrying away the day's metabolic wastes, transporting them to organs like the kidneys and liver for processing, the lungs for exhalation, and the skin for minor excretion, sweat, if needed. Your kidneys, though not the focus here, are part of circulation. They continuously filter the blood's plasma, removing waste, like urea, and adjusting levels of salts and water. During night, they actually slow down a bit, which is why urine output is less and you can often sleep through the night without needing to go. This too is orchestrated. Hormones like ADH, antidiuretic hormone, increase at night to make the kidneys retain more water, so you don't fill your bladder as quickly. See how even that is set up for restful sleep? Your circulatory system plus endocrine signals ensure your body can maintain itself without bothering you. If you take a calm breath in and then out, you're indirectly feeling part of the circulatory dance too. The oxygen you inhaled will end up in blood, the carbon dioxide you exhaled came from blood. It's a reminder that breathing and circulation are partners. In fact, if you ever focus on breathing slow and deep, you can slow your heart through reflexes like the baroreceptor reflex and direct autonomic adjustments. Some people practice breathing exercises to modulate heart rate and blood pressure intentionally, like pranayama or coherence breathing. But even without that, in the gentle state you're in, your breathing likely has become slow and regular, and your heart may be synchronizing somewhat with it, a phenomenon called respiratory sinus arrhythmia. Heart rate slightly increases on inhalation and decreases on exhalation, which is normal and more pronounced in relaxed states. Your vascular system has incredible reach, from the largest artery, aorta tilde 2.5 cm diameter, down to the capillaries, maybe 5 to 10 micrometers. If you stretched out all your blood vessels end to end, it would span thousands of kilometers, an almost unfathomable distance, yet all of it neatly packaged inside you, delivering life to every corner. In the stillness of this moment, that entire system is working quietly. There's no sensation of blood rushing unless you specifically tune into maybe a pulse, because it's designed to be unobtrusive. Only under exertion or emotion might you feel your heart pound or skin flush. In calmness, it's nearly silent. If we focus for a second on the sounds of circulation, apart from the heart sounds, normally blood flow is silent, laminar flow. It's only if flow becomes turbulent, like if you partially compress an artery, that you hear sounds, like the whooshing when a blood pressure cuff is used. Those are Korotkoff sounds produced by turbulent flow when the cuff pressure is between systolic and diastolic. In health, inside your vessels the flow is smooth and noiseless. It's amazing, millions of cells coursing through tubes, yet no noise. Perhaps one could imagine it like a gentle breeze or a soft current. If we anthropomorphize, each red blood cell might be like a little traveler, never resting, always on a circuit to deliver oxygen. And the heart is the steadfast guide sending them on their way. As you relax, your circulatory system ensures that all your tissues are supplied for their nighttime needs. Your muscles require less oxygen now, so arterioles to muscle may constrict a bit, diverting some blood to other places like digestive organs or skin. Your brain is in relaxation mode, but it's still active in its own patterns, so blood flow there might shift from the frontal cortex, active in thinking during the day, to more internal regions related to memory consolidation or dreams at certain sleep phases. It's all very orchestrated. But you don't have to direct any of it. Your body's autonomic nervous system, along with local controls like tissues releasing which causes local vasodilation to get more blood, handle all that flawlessly. Take comfort in that automatic care. Your heart will continue to beat through the night without you needing to worry. It might even beat more uniformly and efficiently due to the vagal tone in sleep, giving the heart a bit of rest too, lower rate, maybe slightly lower blood pressure, which is good for the heart. Think of it, your heart that worked all day at perhaps 70 to 80 beats a minute now maybe goes at 50 to 60 for hours. That's a reduction in workload which is restorative. The heart itself gets its blood supply from the coronary arteries, which fill during diastole when the heart muscle relaxes. In sleep, because heart rate is lower, diastole is longer so coronary flow can be ample for the reduced demands. Essentially, the heart rests between beats, and slower heart means more rest per minute for the heart muscle. So nighttime is also heart's recuperation time. Blood also carries hormones, and at night some hormone levels change. For example, melatonin, the sleep hormone from the pineal gland, rises in the blood, making you feel sleepy and also possibly helping as an antioxidant. Growth hormone surges in early sleep, helping repair tissues. It travels via blood to muscles, bones, etc., stimulating protein synthesis and cell repair. So right now, growth hormone might be peaking, especially if you've recently fallen asleep. Cortisol, a stress hormone, is at its low point at night and will start rising towards morning to help energize you for waking. All of these chemical messengers ride in the bloodstream to their target organs. It's like at night a different set of couriers takes the night shift, repair and restore hormones come out, while daytime alertness hormones are subdued. We could think of the temperature too. Blood helps distribute heat in your body. As you fall asleep, your core body temperature usually drops slightly. Blood vessels in the skin may dilate to let out some heat, hence you might feel warm flush then cooling, transferring heat from core to periphery. That's why a cooler bedroom helps. It assists the body's natural cooling. And your blood is the vehicle of that heat transfer. As your body temperature lowers a bit, metabolism slows, which is consistent with rest. This cooling effect is also part of the circadian rhythm. In essence, your circulatory system is the great sustainer. While you sleep, it's like a quiet night shift crew, cleaning up and restocking, ensuring that come morning, your body is refreshed. If the musculoskeletal system was about structure and movement, the circulatory is about nourishment and maintenance. Every little cell that made up your muscles and bones we discussed is being looked after by capillaries supplying it and removing wastes. Feel the comfort that your heart and blood are continuously, quietly at work for you. You don't need to consciously drive it, it's as automatic as the sunrise. If you ever wake in the middle of the night, you might feel your heart beating softly in your chest, a reminder you're alive and okay. Sometimes focusing on that gentle heartbeat can be very calming. It's like an innate lullaby, a rhythm from within. As you breathe slowly now, you might imagine the blood flowing out with each heartbeat, reaching every part of you with life-giving oxygen, then returning, then out again. A circular flow that never stops, like a smooth infinite loop. The word circulation itself implies moving in a circle, and indeed it's an endless loop from heart to lungs and back. This cyclical nature has a symmetry that is satisfying and reassuring. Let's conclude our circulatory reverie by picturing a calm scenario. Imagine you are floating in a gentle stream that loops around and around. The water carries you effortlessly. That stream is akin to your circulation, always moving, but calmly, carrying nutrients like little boats delivering goods. The heart is the source of the current. And your entire body is an island network being watered and fed by this stream. It all happens silently in the background of your being. Adaptation and Mechanotransduction, how the body changes and responds. Our exploration so far has been like a peaceful tour of a well-designed machine. But the human body is more than a machine, it's a living, adapting organism. It doesn't just passively exist, it actively responds and changes to the world around it. This final chapter in our journey is about adaptation, how tissues change over time, how cells sense the forces and environment, a process called Mechanotransduction, and how even when we introduce foreign materials like implants, the body reacts. We'll keep this gentle and optimistic, focusing on the amazing resilience and adaptability of your body. Think about the phrase, use it or lose it. It applies to many aspects of the body. If you regularly use a tissue or organ system, it tends to improve or maintain itself. If you neglect it, it can weaken. This is a fundamental principle of adaptation. Let's start with bone adaptation. We mentioned earlier that bone is alive and remodels itself. There's a famous concept in biomechanics known as Wolff's Law, which essentially states that bone grows and remodels in response to the forces it experiences. In simple terms, if a bone is subjected to higher loads, it will become denser or change shape to handle that load. If it sees very little load, it will lose density, become more porous, lighter, since it's not needed. Your bones are always seeking an equilibrium of mechanical strain, not too high, not too low. There's even the idea of a mechanostat, like a thermostat for strain. If typical strains on a bone are below a certain threshold, bone remodeling cells get the message we can take some bone away, we have extra. If strains are above a threshold, they get the message add bone here to strengthen. In normal daily life, most healthy people's bones receive enough stimulus to stay strong. Activities like walking, taking stairs, carrying groceries, these all put forces through bones that say stay robust. If someone becomes very sedentary or is bedridden, bones, especially weight-bearing ones like those in the legs and spine, start to thin because the mechanostat is seeing low strain and instructs bone resorption. On the other hand, moderate impact exercise, like jogging or dancing or strength training can nudge bones to increase density or at least minimize loss. Bone adaptation is carried out by a team of cells, osteoblasts, which build bone, osteoclasts, which break down bone, and osteocytes, mature bone cells embedded in the bone matrix that act as sensors. Osteocytes are like little guardians inside the bone. They have long branches connecting to each other and to bone surface cells, and they can sense mechanical strain. They feel when bone is bent or compressed slightly. If an osteocyte senses less strain than usual, it might signal for bone resorption, perhaps via releasing proteins like sclerostin that tell osteoblasts to slow down. If it senses more strain, like during exercise, it signals osteoblasts to be active, adding bone. In fact, experiments where you apply cyclic loads to animal bones show bone formation in those regions. It's as if the bone knows where it's needed. How exactly the cells sense the strain is a fascinating topic. They might sense deformation of the bone matrix, fluid flow in the tiny canals in bone, called canaliculi, that shear over their cell membranes, or stretching of their own cell structure. This is Mechanotransduction at the cellular level, converting the mechanical stimulus, strain, stress, fluid shear, into a biochemical response, release of growth factors, modulation of gene expression. You don't feel any of this consciously, it's all automatic internal maintenance. Now consider muscle adaptation. Muscles definitely abide by use it or lose it. If you challenge muscles with exercise, especially resistance, weight, training or anything that makes them work near their capacity, they respond over time by getting stronger and often larger. This is hypertrophy. The muscle fibers synthesize more contractile proteins, actin and myosin, and increase in cross-sectional area, so they can exert more force. The number of muscle fibers doesn't usually increase, some debate in extreme cases, but each fiber can grow thicker. Also, with endurance training, muscles adapt by improving their metabolic machinery, more mitochondria to use oxygen, more capillaries grow into the muscle for blood supply, changes in enzyme levels to better use fat or glucose, etc. If you stop using muscle, like wearing a cast, or zero gravity, or prolonged inactivity, the opposite happens quickly. Muscle fibers shrink, atrophy, because the body figures, why maintain energy-expensive tissue that's not needed? But the good news is this is reversible. Resume activity, and the muscles build back up. Even as you sleep, if you've done exercise during the day, a lot of muscle recovery and growth processes occur at night. Muscle protein synthesis tends to increase during sleep, facilitated by hormones like growth hormone. So you could imagine that if you did a workout earlier, now in deep sleep your muscles are busy repairing microscopic tears and fortifying themselves, so that in a day or two they'll be a bit stronger. Muscle adaptation is part of why training works. It's also why physical therapy helps regain function after injuries. Gradually loading the muscles tells them to grow and get strong again. Connective tissues, tendons, ligaments, cartilage, adapt more slowly than muscles and bone, but they do adapt. Tendons and ligaments, when subjected to regular loading, can become a bit stronger and stiffer over time. They add collagen fibers or crosslinks in response to stress. For example, a pianist's finger tendons may develop a certain resilience, a runner's Achilles tendon might get thicker from the repeated strain, and a martial artist's bone and connective tissues in hands or shins might toughen from conditioning, small micro-injuries that heal stronger. Conversely, if someone is very inactive or has to immobilize a joint, tendons and ligaments can weaken, less collagen turnover, some fibers may lose alignment. That's why starting exercise after a long sedentary period needs to be gradual. The muscles may strengthen faster than the tendons can adapt, so you must pace it to avoid tendon injury. But given time and proper stimulation, connective tissues do respond. Cartilage is a bit different because it doesn't have a blood supply or many cells, and the cells, chondrocytes, are not as quick to proliferate or produce matrix once adulthood is reached. Cartilage can wear down over years, like in osteoarthritis, and has limited ability to regenerate. However, moderate use actually helps keep it healthy by pumping nutrients in and out as we described. There's evidence that regular low-impact exercise nourishes cartilage and may stimulate chondrocytes to produce matrix, whereas complete inactivity can make cartilage thinner and less healthy. It's a fine balance. Cartilage thrives under a Goldilocks load, not too little, not too much. Very high impact or heavy loads can damage it over time if beyond what it's conditioned for, but moderate loads keep it functioning. So adaptation in cartilage is more about maintenance than dramatic growth. But some adaptation happens. For instance, athletes might have slightly thicker joint cartilage or stronger supporting muscles that reduce cartilage stress. Now, mechanotransduction is how cells sense and respond to mechanical signals, and it underlies much of what we described. Let's gently consider some known mechanotransduction mechanisms. Cells have various structures that can act as sensors, stretch-sensitive ion channels in cell membranes that open when the membrane is stretched, letting ions flow in and trigger signals, integrins, proteins that connect the cell's internal cytoskeleton to the extracellular matrix, that can convey forces into the cell and even into the nucleus, and the cytoskeleton itself, a network of protein filaments in cells, which can redistribute forces. For example, endothelial cells, the cells lining blood vessels, experience shear stress from blood flow. In response, they produce substances like nitric oxide that cause the vessel to dilate, adjusting the caliber for the flow. This is an important mechanotransduction for regulating blood pressure and flow. If the flow is very high or turbulent, endothelial cells can also activate pathways that might lead to structural remodeling of the vessel, like making the wall stronger, or unfortunately, if it's chronic turbulence, it can contribute to atherosclerosis. But in normal conditions, they align with flow. Literally, the cells elongate in the direction of flow and their internal actin filaments align. Isn't that fascinating? The cells physically change orientation to better withstand the shear stress. It's as if they streamline themselves like a wind-blown grass field. Bone's mechanotransduction might involve tiny electric currents. When bone crystals are stressed, they generate piezoelectric signals that osteocytes might detect. Or fluid in the bone's canals flows over osteocyte cilia, small hair-like projections, bending them to trigger a response. Muscle mechanotransduction for growth involves sensing tension or damage. When you lift weights, muscle fibers not only sense the tension through proteins that might stretch in the cell membrane or cytoskeleton, but also small micro-tears occur. This triggers satellite cells, muscle stem cells, to activate and fuse with muscle fibers, donating nuclei and supporting growth. Over time, this leads to muscle fiber hypertrophy. There are also signaling pathways like mTOR that get turned on by mechanical stimuli and nutrients, leading to protein synthesis. It's heartwarming to think that every time you use your body meaningfully, your cells are listening and responding. Lifting a heavy box signals your muscles and bones we might need to be stronger. Running a bit signals your heart and vessels we might need better efficiency. Stretching signals your connective tissue let's elongate a bit. Even at the cellular level, they are adapting. Now, adaptation isn't instantaneous, it's a slow process over days, weeks, months. But it's continuous. Even tonight, subtle adjustments are happening. If you started a new exercise routine this week, tonight your body might be busily adapting, building new muscle proteins, reinforcing bone matrix, increasing capillaries. If you've been inactive, perhaps your body is conserving, slightly reducing things. But it's always in flux, aiming for optimal function with the least cost. The body is efficient, it doesn't maintain more tissue than needed because that costs energy. This adaptability is also why rehabilitation works after injuries. You can slowly retrain tissues. It's how astronauts recover bone and muscle after coming back from microgravity, gradually reloading them to trigger regrowth. It's how our ancestors' bones would strengthen from a life of walking and manual labor, or how a tennis player's forearm bones and muscles become thicker on the dominant side. Remarkably, studies show differences. Now, let's talk gently about when we introduce something artificial into the body, implants, like a hip replacement, a dental implant, or a spinal rod. These are amazing medical innovations, but they change the mechanical environment, so the body will adapt to them too, sometimes in unintended ways. One phenomenon is stress shielding. Imagine a metal hip stem inserted into the femur, thigh bone, during a hip replacement. The metal is rigid and takes on some of the load that the bone used to handle. So the bone around it now sees less stress than before, because the implant is carrying part of it. The bone's mechanostat notices this reduction and may start to resorb bone. Essentially, the bone thins out because it's not needed to carry as much load. This is stress shielding. The implant shields the bone from stress, and the bone, getting lazy, loses density. Over time, that can be an issue because you want the bone to remain strong to support the implant. That's why implant design tries to balance load sharing. The ideal is to have implant and bone share the load in a good way, so the bone still sees enough stimulus to stay healthy. Materials like titanium, which is less stiff than steel, or implant designs that taper and transfer load gradually are used to encourage bone to still participate. Also, implants often have coatings or texture to bond with bone, osseointegration, so that they move together and share load. On the flip side, consider a spinal fusion, connecting two or more vertebrae with a rigid rod, like a metal fixation, so they no longer move relative to each other. This can relieve pain at an unstable segment, but it means the levels above and below now have to compensate with more motion. The fusion, implanted rod and screws, is in series with the spine, effectively removing motion at that segment and transferring it to the next ones. The adjacent levels now experience higher stresses and potentially more wear and tear, a phenomenon known as adjacent segment disease. Over years, the disc or joints at those adjacent levels might degenerate faster because they're doing extra work, as indicated in that spine fusion example. It's like if one link in a springy chain is made unyielding, the neighboring links take on more strain and might eventually fail. Surgeons are aware of this and sometimes limit fusion length or use motion-preserving devices in some cases to mitigate it. But it's a trade-off, immediate benefit versus long-term changes. Another example, to knee replacement, the natural knee distributes load through cartilage and menisci into the tibia. If replaced with metal and plastic components, how the load goes into the bone can change. Sometimes the bone under the implant might resorb or remodel differently. Also, if alignment is changed, other joints adapt, like if your leg axis changes, your hip might experience different forces. Dental implants, when a tooth is lost, the bone in the jaw, or alveolar bone, tends to resorb because the tooth's absence means less stimulation. Teeth transmit bite forces to the jaw bone normally. Placing a dental implant and loading it, chewing can help maintain bone, thereby providing that needed mechanical stimulus again. On the other hand, if an implant is much stiffer than natural tooth, it might concentrate force in certain areas. Fortunately, bone around implants often adapts to a point and then stays, as long as loads are within a normal range. The body's response to implants is not just mechanical adaptation but also biological, inflammation, etc. But focusing on mechanics, it's about load sharing versus load transfer. Load sharing, like a plate on a bone fracture, means the implant and bone share the load in parallel. Ideally, as bone heals, it takes more load and the plate less, or else if plate takes too much, bone may heal weaker. Load transfer, like a long rod replacing a bone section, means how that load flows to other parts, e.g., the ends of the rod might stress those bone regions more. Engineers and doctors try to design implants to fit with the body's adaptation tendencies. For example, some newer spine devices allow a little flex, dynamic stabilization, to reduce stress on adjacent levels. Hip implants have different stiffness options. Joint replacements aim to align correctly to avoid abnormal load on other joints. In all cases, a patient with an implant is often advised to do certain exercises or physical therapy. Part of that is to encourage the body to adapt positively, like strengthening muscles around a new joint or encouraging bone to integrate with an implant. The Mechanotransduction principle is used therapeutically. Appropriate loading can improve outcomes. For instance, weight bearing after a fracture, once stabilized, stimulates bone healing. Too much too soon would harm, but none at all delays healing, so there's a sweet spot. Let's also consider tissue engineering. Scientists are working on growing replacement tissues with appropriate mechanical stimulation, e.g., bioreactors that apply cyclic strain to grow stronger cartilage or bone in lab. They found that cells grown in such environments develop better ECM similar to native tissue. This underscores how important mechanical signals are to development. As embryos, as children, mechanical forces, from movement, muscle contractions, help shape our bones and joints. For example, babies in the womb move around. If movement is restricted, like in some rare conditions, skeletal development can be abnormal. So from the beginning, biomechanics is influencing biology. So, adaptation is lifelong. And it's generally for our benefit. It is the body's way to optimize for our habits and environment. If you frequently hike uphill, your calves and bones will adapt to make it easier. If you practice yoga stretching, your muscles and connective tissues adapt to become more flexible. If you take up swimming, your shoulders might broaden, your heart and lung capacity improves. On the other hand, if circumstances force you to reduce activity, like a desk job or injury, your body economizes, some muscle and bone might reduce. But the moment you re-engage those tissues, adaptation begins anew. Even the circulatory system adapts. For instance, chronic exercise leads to a lower resting heart rate. The heart muscle gets stronger, pumps more per beat, so doesn't need to beat as fast. That's an adaptation. Blood volume might increase slightly with endurance training. Capillaries grow in trained muscles, angiogenesis. Blood pressure might lower a bit at rest due to improved vessel elasticity. If someone moves to high altitude, their body adapts by producing more red blood cells to capture oxygen. That's a form of adaptation to the environment's stress of low oxygen. Return to sea level and those extra red cells eventually reduce. Mechanotransduction also has a role in some diseases. For example, if cartilage cells sense too much load repeatedly, like heavy impact with poor alignment, they might begin to break down cartilage, osteoarthritis. Or if bone is overloaded in an unusual way, it can form extra bone spurs. The body is trying to adapt, though sometimes that adaptation can cause issues if the environment is not ideal, like trying to stabilize an arthritic joint by growing bone spurs, which can then hurt movement. But these are more pathological cases. In a healthy scenario, adaptation strengthens and protects. It's remarkable that within your body as you lie here, some cells might be experiencing subtle mechanical signals. For instance, your skin cells might be sensing the shear if you shift a bit on the sheets and will respond by perhaps thickening slightly if friction is frequent. Ever notice small calluses? Or the bone cells in your heels might feel the occasional pressure when you shift legs and maintain bone there accordingly. Even at night, low-level processes continue. For instance, the pressure of your body on the bed compresses some blood vessels slightly, and your body will unconsciously make you turn or move a bit to relieve pressure, a protective mechanism to avoid any one spot having too little blood for too long. These micro-movements in sleep help prevent pressure sores, again, a response to mechanical cues, pressure. Finally, let's address adaptation in the context of healing. When tissues are injured, mechanical load often must be reduced initially to not worsen the injury, but then gradually reintroduced to stimulate proper healing. For a broken bone, that's why after a period in a cast, doctors often recommend weight-bearing as tolerated, because bone healing, after initial union, actually strengthens with controlled load, Wolff's law in action. For a ligament sprain, once initial inflammation passes, gentle movement and stress help the fibers realign correctly and heal stronger rather than disorganized. Even for a cut on skin, mechanical tension on the wound influences how it heals. Surgeons align incisions along skin tension lines for better healing with minimal scarring. The concept of Mechanotransduction extends to implant technology design. New smart implants might one day deliver mechanical stimuli to surrounding tissues to encourage better integration. Already, for example, some dental implants promote bone growth by microvibrations or surface textures that encourage bone cells to attach. In summary of adaptation, your body is amazingly plastic, modifiable, within certain limits. It's always detecting what you do and adjusting. This means you have agency. Gentle, consistent changes in your lifestyle can lead to real changes in your body over time. If you feel something is too difficult now, say, flexibility or strength, with gradual practice, your body will adapt and it will become easier. That knowledge is empowering and calming. You are not stuck in one state, your body supports you to change with your needs. Now, as the day's activities end and you sleep, your body is consolidating those adaptations quietly. Tissue adaptation is largely a slow wave, so you won't feel anything dramatic overnight, except maybe muscle soreness from prior exercise, which is actually part of the adaptation process. But know that many beneficial processes are happening. Your bones might be depositing a bit of extra calcium where needed, your muscles synthesizing protein, your blood capillaries sprouting if you've recently taken up endurance exercise, your brain forming new connections from the day's learning, and so on. With that, let's gently conclude our biomechanical journey. Outro, a peaceful recap and good night. We have softly traveled through the realms of biomechanics, the science of how your body moves and sustains itself. We began by grounding ourselves in the language of the body, anatomical planes, positions, and movements, painting a mental picture of a body at peace yet capable of graceful motion. We felt the balance of forces and moments, appreciating how even in stillness, equilibrium holds us in a gentle embrace. We marveled at the material properties of our tissues, how bones, muscles, and connective tissues behave like springs and sponges combined, giving us both strength and flexibility. We learned how our body's tissues are categorized and how they create the tapestry of our being, held together by the extracellular matrix, that meshwork of collagen, elastin, and gel that fills the spaces between cells. We dove into the skeletal system, seeing our bones not as inert sticks but as living support beams that adapt and repair, our joints as smooth articulations that grant freedom of movement, cushioned by cartilage and guided by ligaments. We felt gratitude for our muscles, the quiet engines that carry us, now resting and rejuvenating, ready to serve again when called. We drifted along the circulatory system, sensing our heart's steady rhythm and the flow of blood that nurtures every corner of us. And finally, we understood that nothing in our body is static, everything adapts. Every day, subtle changes occur to better suit our activities and needs, a testament to the intelligence inherent in our tissues. As you lie here, all these systems are working in concert quietly. Your body is at equilibrium, your heart is calm, your muscles are relaxed, your mind can be at ease. You might visualize it one more time in unison, a gentle breath in, your diaphragm descends, ribs expand, your heart fills with blood. A breath out, your heart pumps that blood onwards. Oxygen flows to your tissues. Your bones and muscles rest, perhaps micro-movements as you adjust in bed to stay comfortable. And on a deeper level, cells are repairing, signals are gently pulsating, everything aiming toward healing and balance. Feel the weight of your body on the bed, that's gravity reminding you of Earth's pull, but notice how perfectly your body and the bed counteract it, leaving you feeling supported and safe. You are in a state of mechanical homeostasis, where every force is balanced, every part of you is in harmony. Your mind can let go of any remaining active thoughts now. You have given it a lot of calming, neutral information to chew on, but now there is nothing more you need to do or think about. If any concept drifts back into your mind, like sagittal plane or muscle fiber or pressure flow, let it just float by like a cloud. You might even find these terms now have a soothing familiarity, but you don't need to actively recall them. They've done their job of gently occupying your mind and leading you to a state of tranquility. From the crown of your head to the soles of your feet, you've acknowledged each part of your body and what it does. Now allow each part to simply be, with no demand on it. Your head and neck are relaxed, your arms and legs heavy and warm, your torso sinking comfortably. Inside, all is well. The engineering of your body is sound, the maintenance is ongoing, you can trust it and relinquish control for the night. In this final moment of wakefulness, perhaps take one more slow, deep breath. Inhale healing, exhale any tension. You are grateful to your body for carrying you through life, and your body is grateful to you for giving it rest and care. Tomorrow, when you wake, all these systems will quietly shift into a more active gear and you'll go about your day, walking, reaching, talking, living, maybe with a slightly new appreciation of the biomechanical symphony enabling it all. But for now, you don't need to plan or do anything. There is nothing to fix or analyze, everything is already in its place for a good night's sleep. Feel a wave of drowsiness now enveloping you, a natural result of all systems slowing. From the tip of your toes, a gentle numbness or lightness might rise, your eyelids are heavy, your breathing is slow and rhythmic. Like the tide going out, consciousness is receding, leaving you in a shallow, then deep, calm sea of sleep. Your entire body and mind come together in quietude. This is the state where healing happens, where memory consolidates, where peace is found. You have done a wonderful job listening and visualizing. Now you can let the words fade. Even my voice may dissolve from your awareness as you drift off. If you still hear me, that's okay, keep floating on the sound until you lose it. It's time to allow yourself to rest completely. There is nothing more to think about, nothing more to feel, except the comfort of your bed and the serenity within you. All the knowledge of biomechanics we softly touched upon will settle into your subconscious, perhaps even giving you reassuring dreams of strength, balance, and fluid motion. Or perhaps you'll simply sleep dreamlessly, which is equally fine.